Welcome back. Fedusa has rejected Cosatu's proposal to use government employees' pension funds to bail out Eskom. It says the proposed 254 billion rand debt write-off for Eskom should not be advanced at the expense of the workers. It wants Eskom to be placed under business rescue, saying the unsustainable debt level at Eskom has rendered the entity insolvent. Fedusa says it supports the restructuring of the utilities business model and says that placing Eskom under business rescue will ensure that a proper turnaround strategy can be sought. It says this will ensure that undue political interference in its operations and governance is prevented. One of Fedusa's proposals is that government must issue bonds to raise money to relieve Eskom of its debt burden, and it wants decisive action to be taken to deal with corruption and corporate governance failures at state-owned enterprises. Fedusa says that taking about 250 billion rand off the workers' pension fund is likely to be a huge risk for workers, especially if Eskom fails to pay back the money. So, to talk about this, we're joined by Ian Cruickshanks, who is a chief economist at the Institute of Race Relations. Thank you very much for coming to our program.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Colin.
Well, now it looks like the unions don't all agree that pension funds should be used to bail out Eskom. What's your view now on these differences of opinion?
I'm not surprised. There should really be great differences of opinion. First of all, we should ask, have those that are instructing the switch of investment influence, is there a mandate to do so? Do the pension fund rules and regulations allow this, make provision for this? It hasn't happened before, so one assumes it may not have. And if that is so, let us go back to whose assets they are. They are the assets of the beneficiaries of those pension funds, medical aids, and so on. And so I think that they should have the final say. And is there the right level of security and stability in those assets to guarantee state pension funds to their ex-employees over an indefinable time? I feel it's been rushed with very little thought of to what the full liabilities could amount to.
But who, in simple economic terms, would want their pension money to be invested in such a reckless venture?
It's difficult to imagine that. After all, the first prerogative is security. Well, I don't think we can look at the state-owned enterprises, or some of them, and say that there is security. We know there isn't. You know, they're under management where they no longer manage their own affairs. I think that this is to say that open it up to those beneficiaries of those funds and say, who would you like to manage it? I'm quite sure that they would not like it to be by those who are proposed now.
What do you think about the concern of Cosatu regarding the impact that this lack of a bailout or lack of funding for Eskom could result in, especially with regards to job losses? Do you think, in genuine terms, they are looking at the interest of the workers?
No, I don't. I'm afraid not. I think that they are taking on an additional amount of risk. These funds should have a no or close to zero risk profile, and it's quite wrong that this should be allowed to slip at all. They are, in any case, the funds who the beneficiaries are, that is the pension funds and pensioners to be as well, and they would not be happy to know that there was a degree of risk, of recklessness almost. After all, if Eskom was insolvent and several of the other state-owned enterprises are under the water, financially speaking, then how can you possibly risk pensioners' money where there should be the greatest degree of caution and responsibility?
Why would anybody want to invest money where there's a risk of not being able to get value for it, and also risk not being able to pay back the money?
Sure. Two risks: not being able to repay the capital, and secondly, not being able to afford the cost of that debt, the interest that has to be paid on it. So there are two factors there, and I think that risk has been passed on to the state. That's all very well, but one is not sure where the funding will come from that allows them to afford it. There's an affordable and responsibility level here that is being ignored, and I think that is definitely irresponsible.
So while we're still at it, I mean, like when you look at productivity in sectors such as mining, manufacturing, agriculture, they continue to be affected by load shedding. And this also can really impede on business confidence in the country. What's your view concerning the projected figures about how BCI may come out in the not so distant future?
Well, what we have seen recently, the confidence index has been slipping further and further down. And what does that say? It says there's no reason to believe that good returns can be attained by investing in these areas. So we're seeing less capital available. That means less new factories, less new machinery being bought, fewer new jobs. With that in mind, I think that there's no way one can see it coming around and a reversal of that situation. We're in a very negative situation right now, and I think that the greatest amount of care has to be taken by the private sector investors, by the public sector looking after the private sector's funds as well.
Right. Please give me your parting shot. I just want you, before you go, to touch on the issue of SAA regarding the notion that when a business rescue practitioner makes recommendations on which direction the organization or company should take, and the very same government that actually has created a platform for business rescue disagrees with the move that's taken concerning SAA, and even though Fedusa is suggesting that there should be business rescue for Eskom as well, how do you do business rescue when you don't sing from the same hymn book?
You don't. You can't. If you're not in agreement, then it shouldn't be possible to do these, to make these conclusions, to exercise mandates, which in fact have not been granted to you in any case. So I think that what we're seeing is here, we're also going, as far as the economy is concerned, into a range between low growth and no growth. And really, in fact, we'll be quite lucky, I think, at this stage, to have any positive growth figures at all. It's very difficult to justify that SAA or Eskom or whoever else should have the allocation of funds which are not supposedly to go to them and have an ability to not to squander, I don't want to say that, to mismanage them, as they have been in the past. This is irresponsible and is not the sort of attitude that our government should be taking.
Well, Ian, let's leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ian Cruickshanks is Chief Economist at the Institute of Race Relations.